Serious, what is the most disrespectful thing a guest ever did in your home? Probably the time where my parents let a family member stay in my room for a while and they found my stash of money I was saving. To this day, he lies to my face and sticks to his story that I lost it. My roommates and I lived in a basement suite in a house during our second year of university, with the landlord upstairs. The landlord was the chillest landlord who ever existed and was fine with us throwing parties every weekend pretty much. She had rented to a group of musicians 4 years before us and was accustomed to the noise. One time she came down the set of stairs connecting the upper and lower suites to drop off some mail. The door in our basement is normally locked from the outside, so we can't go upstairs through it, but she must have forgotten to lock it back up on her way out. Later that night we noticed that one of our friends, John, had disappeared. His shoes were still by the door, so we assumed he had walked outside barefoot. We didn't really make much of it because he suddenly appeared back half an hour later. The next day the landlord comes down and says that we had an escapee last night. We were all confused for a moment, but then it all clicks for us at the same time. John. She recounted the story of what happened to us. Turns out John had been feeling adventurous and without realizing what he was doing, opened the door to the upstairs and walked up. He made his way to the fridge, opened it and started eating handfuls of pie straight from the tin. Not only was she cool enough to not immediately call the police or put an end to our party, she started talking to him. She asked him how old he was. 19. We are Canadian, so we are legal to drink. She follows up with how long have you been 19? Thinking it was his birthday, which would explain the excessive drunkenness. His answer to that was I've been 19 for 2 years. I'm from Camp Bell River, a small town in Because, where time moves incredibly slowly. After her laughing at his joke and finishing his handful of life, she escorted him back downstairs like nothing had ever happened. My mother-in-law decided it was fine for her to smoke in our house after being explicitly told by my wife that it was not okay. I smoked at the time and even I did not smoke in the house. Relatives stayed at our house over the holidays and went into our room and drawers. When my wife came home, she asked my wife why does she have so much makeup if she doesn't use them, and proceeded to ask if she could have some of the items she found for keeps. Back in my bachelor days, my buddy and I decided to hit the nightlife in some bars in Austin. I was never a big drinker and had a few beers over the course of the evening. He was drinking vodka all night like it was water. Needless to say, he was in no condition to drive across town to his place, so I told him he could just crash at mine. Sunday morning and I'm getting ready for church. Knock on the door and ask if he's okay. Told him he could sleep in while I'm gone if he wants to, but he just says he's got to get going and quickly leaves. Get back from church a few hours later and the entire apartment smells like shit. Sniff out the sauce in the guest bed. Evidently the ducker had woken up during the middle of the night and evacuated a beagle-sized turd into my sheets, rolled them up, and then continued sleeping the rest of the night in the same bed he had befouled. The real WTF, other than sleeping all night next to a rolled up sheet with your own monstrous juice in it, is that he could have just stayed after I left, cleaned up, and I would have probably never known. Duck you, Warren. This happened to my friend. She has a koi pond in her backyard that her and her husband built themselves. It's a nice little pond in the ground with rocks and a waterfall. They also have a couple of cats. They go out of town for a couple weeks, and one of her work friends takes care of her house. A few days in, this work friend comes over and dumps the entire bag of cat food onto the kitchen floor. Then she decided that the water in the koi pond looked a bit low, so they turn on the hose to top it off. Only they forget to turn the hose off. When they leave, she never comes back to the house to check on anything. A couple days later, the neighbor notices that their backyard is flooded and that there's koi swimming around in the yard. They turn off the water and try to catch the koi, but are not successful. The koi end up dying or getting away. Luckily the cats inside were okay. The neighbor calls my friend to tell her what happened. Let's just say that my friend is not friends with her co-worker anymore. Put a magnet up to my TV, permanently leaving a discolored spot. He just had it in his pocket. Like what the heck? We said not to eat in the guest bedroom. And when we went in there, after they had left, we found ice cream all over the sheets. Also, the same people left flecks of feces in the bathroom sink and feces soiled toilet paper on the bathroom floor on 2 separate occasions. My friend's husband peed in the hallway when we were all drunk. He said the bathroom was full and he couldn't make it outside to pee on a bush. Next time I saw him, I gave him a small potted plant with a homemade men's room sign stuck in it and told him now he had a porta potty. The plant died. I pick up friends from the airport only to find out that they've invited themselves to stay at my place. To save money, they also save money by consuming my food and alcohol and trying to get me to split the bill 50-50 when I've had a Corona and empanada and they had Florida lobster, stone crabs, and those giant fishbowl mugs. No more. You don't have a place. There's a 20 a night hostel down the road. Future mother-in-law started pulling out flowers and vines she didn't like, and to top it off, not clean up the mess she made. A couple of years ago, a friend of a friend was going to be homeless. Decided to let him stay at my place for what was supposed to be 2 weeks, but turned into 3 months. He would throw trash in the floor, like directly on the floor, and leave it. Walk all over my rug, with muddy shoes on. Smelled like shit all the time. He would clip his toenails in the middle of the floor and just leave it. Worst experience I've ever had. Due to that, I've never let anybody stay at my home ever again. She's actually here right now and just put my mom's homemade maple syrup in the trash. She threw out my night mouth guard once. Mom invited a family friend over for lunch. Mom said the friend was coming with their husband and 2 kids. They came with 2 freaking families we did not know. The quiet moment when mom's eyes move in silent subtle horror. The 8-mile leftovers that I had been saving and put the empty boxes back in the fridge. I went all day thinking I still had food. Went to eat and almost cried. When I was about 4, I got a stuffed rabbit wearing pajamas from a family friend of ours. We lived in a house that was over 100 years old, and my parents found the original family who lived there, or other, their descendants, and we became fast friends. We called her Aunt Janie, even though she wasn't related. So Aunt Janie sent me the rabbit in pajamas, and I took him everywhere. It took serious work for me not to take him to school. His fur was white as snow, so I named him Sugar. Sugar was my bro. I told him everything, which as a military kid who moved every year and never got to make serious friends, ended up being quite a bit. Sugar and I loved watching the fish tank my mom had got me. I would just put my rocking chair up right in front of the tank, and it was better than TV to me. So we moved to the armpit of the US, a little town called Altus, Oklahoma. There was a girl next door who didn't seem very nice, but she had a trampoline. So I was willing to deal with it, on the hopes of getting those sweet jumpy jumps. She came over to our house first, just as a getting to know you first introduction, and Sugar was pulling reckon with me. She asked if she could see my rabbit, and I thought hard, could I trust her? Should I do it so we could be friends and jump on the trampoline? I decided it couldn't hurt. After all, we were on me and Sug's home turf. I no sooner handed her my best friend than she snatched him away, tore off both of his arms, and ripped him from stem to stern. It was a long time in my life before I knew pain like that again. Fortunately, I had a first-class trauma surgeon in my family, and Dr. Mom spent a solid 30 minutes in the operating suite or dining room table. Your call fixing my boy up. Sugar is still my point man for life. We had a friend over who spent the entire evening telling us how ugly our home was. Like, we drove up, and he said what a shithole, and then made rude comments about our furniture and decor once he was inside. Our house is really nice in a nice part of town. Decorated tastefully and simply. I was livid by the end of the night. A friend of mine decided to take a piss in our bottle of hand wash in the bathroom because he didn't like my stepdad. When he came back laughing, I asked him what was up, and he told me, expecting me to find it hilarious. I did not. I also had another friend stay over one night and he stole my HDD out of my ZB Multiply 360. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,